Did Jason honestly think he could waltz back into town, align himself with a complete wildcard like Tristan, and somehow keep his true, devastating motives hidden from the very people who know him best? If you ask me, the sheer audacity of this entire setup is enough to make your head spin. When you analyze the current landscape of the city, you have to view this latest development as a highly dangerous, deadlocked battlefield where no one is truly safe. On one side, we have Sonny, a man who has survived countless attempts on his life, currently navigating the treacherous waters of Jens and his chaotic revenge traps. On the other side, we have the shadowy, omnipresent threat of the intelligence agency, an organization that has never shied away from crossing ethical lines to achieve its international objectives. And right in the middle of this powder keg stands Jason and the newly arrived Tristan. It looks like Tristan did not just wander into town looking for a fresh start or a simple change of scenery. This has all the hallmarks of a highly calculated move, a synchronized operation designed with one singular terrifying goal, the permanent elimination of Sonny. The stakes have absolutely never been this high. Let us break down the psychological motive behind the agency's potential involvement here, because it is crucial to understanding the bigger picture. If you ask me, Sonny and his recent unpredictable maneuvers, his bold new strategies, and his dangerous entanglement with international criminals like Jens and double agents like Ross have finally pushed him over the edge in the eyes of the global intelligence community. The agency likely views Sonny not just as a local mob boss anymore, but as a severe, uncontrollable liability to their delicate international operations. This implies that they have sanctioned a top-secret, highly classified directive to remove him from the board entirely. Tristan appears to be the point man for this operation, but the true psychological warfare comes into play with the inclusion of Jason. To use a man's best friend as his executioner is a level of psychological cruelty that is genuinely hard to fathom, but no calculated move is ever entirely flawless, is it? There is always a loose thread waiting to be pulled, and enter Dante. Dante is a man whose entire existence is defined by a rigid moral compass and a deeply complicated psychological relationship with his father. As a dedicated detective at the police department, Dante has a trained eye for the microscopic details that others completely miss or dismiss as coincidence. It looks like Dante has stumbled upon a series of glaring anomalies within the police reports, coupled with whispers of clandestine, off-the-books meetings between Jason and Tristan in the dead of night. If you think about the shattered trust this implies, it is absolutely staggering. Dante initially cannot bring himself to believe that Jason, the man who has historically been Sonny and his most fiercely loyal protector, could be coordinating a lethal strike against him. However, the evidence is slowly but surely mounting, and Dante cannot simply look the other way, no matter how much he might want to ignore the devastating truth. This brings us to a fascinating psychological crossroad for the detective. Dante has spent his entire career trying to put his father behind bars through legitimate means. He despises the mob violence, the collateral damage, and the dark shadow Sonny casts over their entire family. But there is a massive, fundamental difference between arresting a man to face a judge in a courtroom and allowing a rogue government agency to execute him in cold blood in the streets. For Dante, the law is absolute and unwavering. If Sonny is to fall, it must be by the book. Assassination is an affront to everything Dante stands for as a man of the law. This implies that Dante is forced into an agonizing position. He must step up to protect the very father he desperately wishes to arrest. This profound realization leads to an unforeseen fallout that I find absolutely captivating to analyze from a character perspective. Dante makes the incredibly risky, career-threatening decision to approach Sonny and warn him about the impending strike involving Tristan and Jason. We are witnessing the potential formation of an unprecedented, albeit temporary, father-son alliance that nobody saw coming. This is not a warm family reunion filled with hugs and emotional apologies. This is a cold, tactical survival strategy born out of absolute necessity. Sonny will undoubtedly activate his extensive underground network to track Tristan and his movements, while Dante leverages the official, classified resources of the police department to monitor the situation from the inside. They are putting aside decades of ideological warfare to face a mutual, existential threat that could destroy them both. Now, let us divide this complex narrative into two distinct, highly plausible scenarios to truly understand the depth of this storyline and where it might be heading. Scenario A posits that the unimaginable is actually happening. Jason has genuinely turned against Sonny and is fully committed to the agency's mission. If we operate under this terrifying assumption, we have to ask ourselves what severe psychological trauma or intense coercion the agency has utilized to break Jason and his legendary, unbreakable loyalty. Could it be that during his time away, Jason was subjected to advanced behavioral modification? Or perhaps the agency is holding something or someone over his head that leaves him absolutely no choice but to comply with their lethal orders? The implications of this are staggering and heartbreaking for longtime viewers. In Scenario A, Jason and Tristan are executing a flawless, devastating pincer movement against their unsuspecting target. They are approaching Sonny from two entirely different angles, gathering the necessary operational intelligence and waiting patiently for the perfect, vulnerable moment to strike. The psychological devastation of this scenario cannot be overstated. Sonny has always viewed Jason as his impenetrable shield, his most trusted confidant in a world full of enemies. If the fatal blow comes from the very hand he trusts most in this world, the emotional destruction will be absolute and final. It looks like Tristan is the handler, ensuring Jason does not deviate from the strict mission parameters, while Jason is the lethal weapon, aimed directly at the heart of the empire he helped build from the ground up. The unforeseen fallout of Scenario A would permanently alter the fabric of the entire city and its core relationships. Imagine the reaction of Carly, who is already pushed to her absolute limits, dealing with Jocelyn and her spy entanglements, not to mention the lingering trauma of her recent captivity. If Carly learns that Jason is actively hunting Sonny, the shattered trust would completely destroy her world. Furthermore, Dante and his role becomes even more tragic. He is trying to stop an unstoppable force, pitting himself directly against a man he once respected and viewed as family. This scenario paints a bleak, unforgiving picture of a world where loyalty is a fragile commodity that can be bought, erased, or manipulated by shadowy government entities with unlimited power. But I am highly skeptical that the writers would permanently obliterate the foundational bond between Jason and Sonny without a massive, game-changing twist. This leads us directly into Scenario B, which, if you ask me, is the far more logical and psychologically complex route for the narrative to take. Could it be that Jason is playing the longest, most dangerous game of his entire life? In Scenario B, Jason is acting as a deeply embedded double agent within the intelligence agency. He is fully aware of the directive to eliminate Sonny, and he is only pretending to cooperate with Tristan to infiltrate the operation and identify the true puppet master pulling the strings from the shadows. This fits his character profile perfectly. Think about the immense psychological fortitude required to pull off this level of deception on a daily basis without slipping up. Jason has to look Tristan in the eye and convince him that he is ready and willing to pull the trigger on his best friend. He has to allow Dante to suspect him, knowing that clearing his name prematurely could blow his cover and guarantee Sonny and his immediate death. This implies an ulterior motive of the highest order. Jason is sacrificing his reputation, the trust of his loved ones, and his own peace of mind to construct a brilliant, high-stakes counter-trap. It looks like Jason is waiting for the absolute final second, the moment when the agency feels entirely secure in their victory, to violently flip the script and reveal his true allegiance. Under Scenario B, Tristan is nothing more than a pawn who has severely underestimated his playing partner. Jason and his calculated move is to gather all the undeniable evidence of the agency's illegal assassination plot, identify the high-ranking officials who sanctioned it, and then completely dismantle the operation from the inside out. When the time comes to strike Sonny, Jason will turn his weapon on the true enemy, saving Sonny and exposing the corruption to the world in a spectacular fashion. This would not only exonerate Jason, but also provide a massive, cathartic payoff for the audience who absolutely refuses to believe he could ever be a traitor to his chosen family. It is the ultimate redemption arc, disguised as a betrayal. What makes Scenario B even more fascinating is how Dante fits into the overall puzzle and complicates the execution. If Jason is indeed a double agent, Dante and his independent investigation, along with his subsequent alliance with Sonny, actually complicate Jason and his secret mission immensely. Dante and his interference could accidentally spook Tristan or the handlers, causing them to accelerate their timeline or change their tactics before Jason is ready to spring his trap. It looks like we are heading toward a massive collision where Dante and his righteous attempt to save his father might inadvertently sabotage Jason and his master plan, forcing all three men into a chaotic, unscripted confrontation where every single decision holds immediate life or death consequences. As we look ahead, the arrival of Tristan has undeniably cast a long, dark shadow over the entire canvas, leaving us all on the edge of our seats. Whether we are facing the heartbreaking reality of Scenario A, where Jason is a compromised weapon aimed at his best friend, or the thrilling espionage of Scenario B, where Jason is the ultimate inside man, the stakes have never been higher. I highly doubt that we are going to get a clean, easy resolution to this conflict anytime soon. Will Jason ultimately pull the trigger, forever shattering the legacy of his loyalty? Or will Dante and his desperate intervention serve as the crucial connection that allows this fractured trio to expose the true enemy hiding in the shadows? If you ask me, we are standing on the precipice of a storyline that will redefine these characters for years to come, and the only certainty is that the fallout will be absolutely devastating.